Hello, and welcome to this special podcast and something of an adventure we thought of, film enthusiasts. And we thought, why not bring in people from each and every section of a film? I believe that most of the people they don't wait for the credits to roll out. They just move out. At max, they'll wait for who has directed it. Other than that, I don't think. I mean, I myself, I don't much bother about who did the VFX. So I think this is sort of giving credit to each and everyone who works in the film industry. It's not just directors. Uh, Hopefully, if actors come, not just actors. I believe everyone is supposed to be given a credit to whichever movie is being produced. In that way, welcome to this podcast. I am Abhiram Vijay Kumar, and with me is Abhiram, who's my senior. Hello, Abhiram. Say hello.
Hello.
Hello. And with me is Rohit. Okay, so we have where is it? We have Rohit, who is also who is in my batch, who is in my year, and we are from Model Engineering College, Trikakara. If that matters to this podcast, I'm not really sure of that. So in that sense, we thought, why not just start a podcast and get involved with people from the film industry and get to know how each and everyone's struggle is. So I think that is the base of this podcast, isn't that, Abhiram? Or is there something else which I am not aware of?
Indeed, to explore cinema in all its capacities and use this medium to bring about the joy of cinema and celebrate it together as a community.
Yeah. So in that note, let's start off with today's episode. And for everyone, I don't know if anyone is going to listen to this in the future. We are going through a pandemic, and this is a really difficult time. So this is the only way how we can connect. Unfortunately or fortunately, I'm not sure of it. So in that note, let me welcome today's guest. He is a writer, a director, and producer, and who has worked mostly, I believe, in behind the scenes of a set, right? And he is Kochikaran. Can I say that?
Yeah, Malayalam. Malayalam. പറയാം.
And then he moved to Bombay, and then he went out of India to study film, and then he came back, and now he's based in Bollywood, if I may say so. So, welcome, Naseef Yusuf Izuddin. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to One More Take.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, let's start off with yourself. Why don't you yourself introduce what do you do, and then we'll get on to it.
Okay. Right now I'm at a crossroads, trying to like move out of one and trying to move into something else. So for the past almost 8 years, I've been working in behind the scenes mostly. Now I'm trying to move on to feature films, like making my own feature films. So that's at the time when you are, catching me in this talk. So, like if it weren't for the pandemic, I would have already been, either meeting with, Malayalam cinema industry people, or, because a couple of meetings were also lined up before the pandemic or the lockdown happened. So at that time they were like, let March finish, let all this virus get over by the end of March, and then we can all meet. In fact, one of the people I was supposed to meet was unfortunately the director who passed away, Sachi.
Oh, okay.
He was one of the people who was supposed to meet. I was supposed to meet. So it was a very unfortunate news to hear that. So, I guess.
So, Naseef, you have worked in different productions, both big and small, from overseeing the behind the scenes productions on the sets of Raees, Happy New Year, Dil Dhadakne Do, Kai Poche, Finding Fanny. Seriously, the list goes on, and maybe sometime in the podcast we could put up some links in the top corner somewhere. You worked on advertisements, and right now you have your own production house as of 2016 that you call 7 is to 3
Yes.
Studios. Also, you've had the wonderful opportunity to be a part of the behind the scenes production of two critically acclaimed films that we all know and love and care for, Tumbad and Newton. So, why not start from where it all began?
It's how do I say it? It's like you often say, like, "Oh, I'm not going to do this," and you end up doing that. So I knew from a very young age itself that movies were my where my interest lies from, like, I think fifth standard onwards. Like, I knew, like, this is what interests me and this is what I want to do. Like, I always used to say I want to be a director, but I don't know what a director does. You just see the movie finish and see directed by Steven Spielberg, or, like, you know
Has there been any specific movie that inspired you? Any specific kind of films? Any specific actors? Or directors, maybe?
I think directors, more than actors, it's directors. So, like, Lord of the Rings is one of those. Lord of the Rings is one of those movies that had a big impact at me at that time. So I was 11 at the time when the movie came out, and obviously, as an 11-year-old, like, seeing such, like, it never before seen visuals, and I was also reading the book also at the same time. So it just, like, wow, like, I want to put these kind of images on screen. I want to help create such stories.
The very idea of starting this podcast was based on Lord of the Rings. There was a Zoom call, right, where they connected
With Josh Gad,
Lord of the Rings connected, and they came in saying their own dialogue. So Ian McKellen came in and he was like, "A wizard is never too late to come," and those things, they bring back so many memories. And then I thought, why not have our own thing? And that kind of sparked the ignition towards what we're doing today, right? And when you bring in memories and talk about things that push these things to happen in the first place, it's amazing.
Like, that's the way, like, that series alone, the kind of impact it has had through many people's lives. So that those are just, like, that, like, so Peter Jackson, Spielberg, James Cameron, so these directors, like, I get it that they are big commercial cinema directors, but you can't deny their influence. Yeah. So, like, the kind of influence they had left on cinema. So that's what I grew up, growing up in Kerala, say in 2000, 2001, without access to internet. All you have is television. And you don't have any other people to tell you these things also. So much of what you discover is, by yourself. Like, you don't have your parents to tell you, like, oh, this is how cinema started or anything. So eventually then, after school, like, I was in Kerala till 10th standard. So 11th and 12th, I went to boarding school in Dehradun. So I remember my sorry?
You were in Cochin, right?
Yeah, I was in Cochin till 10th. I was here in Greets Public School. At that time, it was known as Greets Academy. So during my 11th and 12th in Dehradun, my sister asked me, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to make movies. So she said, okay, you find a school and I'll send you. So basically, she took charge of my education, and I searched for film schools all over the world, and I found Vancouver Film School. So I said, like, I want to apply here, and she helped me with everything, including the financials, and she was familiar with the place also, so she had friends there. So they all helped me feel at home, settling into a new place in a different country halfway across the world. And surprisingly, like, they kept asking me, are you facing any culture shock? Like, I wasn't. I felt completely at home. And especially, like, I was not very good at academics, but when my first term's results came out in film school, everybody was sort of shocked. Like, I was getting like 80 above, 90 above marks in most subjects, and people are like, is this really your marks? Because I was just so, what do you say, getting to learn what I have interest in. Like, I was just so occupied with it. Like, I just dived into it. I mostly, like, when people go abroad, they want to do all sorts of things that they were restricted when they're in, say, their home, in their home country or in their home city. But while I was there, all I did was just, focus on my studies, because it was just, you're watching movies, you're making movies, you're talking about movies or all those sort of things. And I had a blast there. So my initial idea was to continue studying there and to find work in Hollywood. So that is one of the intentions I studied overseas. But like when people suggested wanted to try looking for work in Bombay or India, Bollywood. So I always kept saying, I don't want to go to Bombay. I don't want to work in, because Bombay growing up sounded like a scary place.
Mm.
So I was like, I don't want to go to Bombay. So this was 2010 when I was in film school. So after I graduated, I had to come back because financial reasons I couldn't apply for the next program immediately, and also there were things like both my parents were in the hospital for different reasons at the same time. So like I came back, then I was like trying to figure out what to do. At that time, I got an offer on a feature film as a assistant director, which eventually I had to move to Bombay anyway. So that's why, like when I said earlier, like you say, oh, I will never do this, and you end up doing this. So one was like, I want to make a horror film, and I want to work in Bombay, and both happened to be the same thing. I was working on a horror film in Bombay. So, but unfortunately, sorry?
Which film was this again?
Yeah, so this movie unfortunately did not get made. We worked on it for 6 months, the pre-production. So when I joined the project, I was doing this. This movie is called, its working title was called Morris, set in Dehradun. So the director of the film had a paranormal experience in the mountains. So he used that experience to write the story. So the director was from Whistling Woods. His name is Anand Kanti, not Anand Gandhi. It starts with a K, K-A-N-T-I, not G, not Gandhi with a G. So he, passed out from Whistling Woods, so he knew a lot of people there, and he tried to set up this production. And we had a whole crew. We were working on it for 6 months, and until we even had an actor signed on and ready. Rajiv Khandelwal is the actor's name. You remember the movie Amir? The Hindi movie Amir? So he's the star of that film. So he's like transitioning from television to film. So Rajiv Khandelwal was ready to do this movie, but after 6 months of working, the producer said he doesn't have the money. So the movie got shelved. And in that process, I lost 10 kilos. I started storyboarding on the film, and towards the end of it, I was rewriting the script, portions of the script. And then once the movie got shelved, like I stayed back in Bombay trying to look for work. So since I came to Bombay as a storyboard artist, I tried to find work along similar lines. So I did a couple of ads as a storyboard artist, and that's when I got an offer to work in a production house called Film Tent. So the founders of Film Tent were very closely associated with Excel Entertainment. One of the founders is the marketing head of Excel, and the other founder was Zoya Akhtar's DA, director's assistant. So at that time, they had just established themselves with the movie Talash. So they did the entire behind the scenes for Talash. So when I joined, the post-production for Kai Poche was happening, and Fukre shoot had just begun. So that's the point at which I come into this company, and basically a lot of my growth was in this company. I got to meet a lot of direct access to a lot of industry professionals, from actors to directors. I worked on the film Bombay Talkies. That was one of my first within that company. I started out as an editor, so I go through all this footage and stuff. And one day I was asked to go and shoot the behind the scenes for Bombay Talkies. And just on that one project, I almost met half of the most Bollywood actors. And a lot of singers also, because there was that infamous song with all the actors coming in Bombay Talkies. So I was mostly, with them. And
the Mohit Chauhan one?
Sorry?
The Mohit Chauhan one?
No, this song is one where they got, the song is like Apna Bombay Talkies, where they had all the actors and different singers coming in.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was very interesting because like you're only meeting these actors for like a couple of hours at most, but in that, over the span of like few days or a week or so, you're meeting all these stars like Deepika, Priyanka, and Amir and Shah Rukh, and like for somebody who had just stepped into the industry, like my mind was absolutely blown by meeting all these people who you're only used to seeing them on a screen. You're like, and you're trying to act professional and not lose your cool, especially like when Shah Rukh walks in, you're like trying to act all cool and not lose your composure, like, oh shit, it's Shah Rukh, like, because you can just imagine what other people would do to get that sort of opportunity to be
Yeah.
even be in that space. So that's how I started and so I started shooting behind the scenes, and eventually I moved from Bombay Talkies to
Before we started recording this podcast, you were talking about how you met Nawazuddin Siddiqui on the sets of Bombay Talkies. So you had some interesting tidbits of information to share. How was this experience for you?
Yeah. So one day they called up and said the Parker's portion of the film, they're doing the prep for it. So they're going to the chawl areas and with Nawaz, so he can sort of, their research sort of thing, so he can get a feel of the space and everything. So they asked us to like come and shoot it. So I went along with them. So there was Nawaz in the car with the director and a couple of assistants, and we went to one of the chawls. And for me, it was right after Gangs of Wasseypur had come out, so I was very excited. Like, my God, it's him! I can't believe it's him. But you look at him, and he doesn't have any of that. What do you say? Aura of that I'm a star. Like you can sort of like with most when you have met a lot of actors, you can tell how some people project themselves, and Nawaz does not project himself like that. He is very like quiet, calm, and like you won't even realize he's there. There are instances where he has told stories where people have forgotten he's on set, and the assistant directors will be looking for him despite him standing right next to them. So because it was right after Gangs of Wasseypur, my sister actually said like she loved his performance when he's cutting that head of that guy in that one scene. So can you please tell him that? So I went up to him and I told him, my sister asked me to tell you this, that she loved the way you cut his head. And he didn't know how to respond to that. He just nodded and said thank you. And it was like always the first impression that you get of a person, like there itself, like you either like a person or you forever have an opinion of them. But with him, like it was like, wow, this guy is amazing. And so that was just the first time I worked with him. Then eventually I went and worked with him on Raees, which had its own fun. But yeah, that was the sort of first time I met Nawaz. And from Bombay Talkies,
all about, the experiences you've had working in your small productions, the big productions like we've discussed. How does the atmosphere vary? How different it is to
I have a very good example of a small production to a big production. So the Tamil movie Pizza.
Yeah.
So it got remade in Hindi called Pizza 3D. So Pizza, I was on Pizza 3D, which was considered low budget. In fact, it is very low budget. And I went from Pizza, the movie I went on to is Happy New Year, which is very high budget. So, like I had both extremes back to back.
This is pretty good, actually.
I heard the Tamil is excellent. I think the Tamil one is like they pretend it's a horror film, but in the end the reveal is it's not. But the Hindi one was like, oh, we have to be different for the sake of being different. So they do the same twist, but then they reveal it to be actually horror. So
spoilers, people.
A gimmick. Yeah, spoilers for, I don't know, like 8-year-old cinema. So on Pizza, what was fun was everybody was new. The director was new. The actors are also relatively new. Most of the crew members were young. So there was a sense of like, we are all in this together and we are all trying to figure this as we are going. And like, I could easily go up to the actor and just start talking to him, have a normal conversation. We are exchanging TV shows that we are watching, and that, like, those sort of conversations you're having with the lead actors of the film. And then I move on to Happy New Year, and there are like 100, 200 people on set. And to get to the actor, you have to go through like 10 people. Like, you can't just simply stand, like if you stand anywhere. On pizza, there were occasions where I would be lying on the floor next to the camera and like nobody would say a thing, because I'm trying to get my angle without appearing any reflection or anything like that. But if I couldn't do the same kind of stuff on Happy New Year, the chief AD was always taking my case. I always trying to hide and shoot your stuff without annoying the actors, not to appear in their eye line. So it was very different in terms of the kind of access you get. Also, on big budgets, you are working with people who are already established. So they're already familiar with each other. So there tends to be certain groups of people that are already familiar, and certain, how you have in schools, there are certain groups. These are the cool kids, these are so and so, and like that. So you have something like that on a film set as well, especially when you're coming into a film which has all these industry veterans. So you don't get the same kind of that family feeling on a big budget set. Obviously the food is good, food is always better. But it was still fun because you're doing, the scale of things get magnified on Happy New Year, like big budget, that means like one day they will be shooting with 200 people, so then will be all that craziness happening, trying to costume all 200 people, trying to get them all in makeup, and then you're doing all those rehearsals, trying to get everything in order, and just total chaos, which is in its way, it's on fun. So there's no definite answer of saying like one is better than the other, although I like both my experience on both films, but the kind of relationships I developed on Pizza is something else. I'm still in touch with one of the ADs of that project. In fact, he's now moved to Kerala wanting to make a film. But with Happy New Year, I'm barely in touch with anybody there, except for a few industry veterans. There's this thing, and when a newcomer comes on set, they like to rag you. Especially like I had left my GoPro to do a time lapse, and I came back and I couldn't find the GoPro. And then they were like, where did it go? Where did it go? So they saw it and they hid it, and they were just making me worry and run around the whole place. Another instance is working on Gulab Gang.
First day on set, and Madhuri, Juhi. Yes.
So it was my first day on that project. So the director, there were some action scenes to be shot. So the director came and asked, like, do you have your union card?
You need you know what union cards are, right? Like there are different sections, and you all have a union for like cinematographer, the assistant director. You need to have membership to work on a movie. That's what they say. I have my own opinions about the whole thing, but I'm not going into that over here. But so I said, no, I don't have a union card for cinematography or anything. So they're like, oh shit, these people will, the union guys will come to check on sets. If you don't have a card, they'll fine you for like some 10,000, 50,000 rupees. So do one thing, you get in costume and just stand there. And if somebody asks, you just came to visit the set, you're somebody's relative, and you're just doing a small appearance on screen. And the costume was always lungi and banyan and everything. So I got terrified, and I was like, shit, so I hid my camera, and then I went and to get my costume changed. Luckily,
one of the ADs came running towards me. He sort of felt pity for me, I guess. He came and said, look, they're taking your case. Don't change. Just play along with, don't tell them I told you this. Just play along with them, and it'll all be over soon. So finally, it backfired on them itself, but they were all very good sports about it. So it's a fun way to break the ice also. You get immediately comfortable with everyone.
while looking up your website, which we can put in the description and somewhere up on the right corner somewhere, we saw pictures of yours with Shah Rukh Khan, Amir Khan, and there was one with Sachin Tendulkar too. So, how was it sharing space with these celebrated personalities of all sorts?
So I'll speak about Sachin first. So here's the thing: I'm not a big cricket fan. So I did not have the initial reaction when I was told, "Oh, we are shooting with Sachin," as say a cricket fan would have. For me, it was like, okay, cool. So me and my boss went and did. It was a 2-camera setup. We were in Shankar Mahadevan's studio. So this was there's this initiative by Farhan called Mard, which is Men Against Rape and Discrimination. So there was a poem that was written in Marathi, I believe, which Sachin was going to recite, and they wanted us to shoot that. So he came in very, like normal, casual. He came in, sat, they discussed. And throughout the whole experience, it was not occurring to me like what's going on. It's like, okay, just, another day on the job, some person who's famous. So we shot the whole thing, we did his interview. And while leaving, we shook hands, And then it struck me like, oh shit, this is Sachin Tendulkar, like he's a national treasure. And and it occurred to me, even if I had asked just like a minute before, like, hey sir, can I click a picture with you? He would have like gladly obliged, because we were in this tiny space, me, my boss and Sachin, in this tiny recording space, and nobody to bother us. Yeah, thankfully, so after we finished the shoot, like I said, it was a 2-camera setup. I was going through the footage to edit it, and I saw in one time in my boss's camera, I come in the frame. So I took a screenshot of it and saved it. I was like, there's never going to be another opportunity. Might as well, save it. So that's how it happened. So yeah, so I figured after the shoot that somewhat like, a fan would have appreciated that moment a lot more than I have, because when I told my friend who's like a huge Sachin fan, like he cried when Sachin retired and everything, like I could just only imagine what he would have done if he were in my position. So are you guys Sachin fans or?
Yeah, Sachin fans. But I think when you're working with him, the professional mind comes first. Right?
Yeah.
So you can't act like a fanboy in front of him.
I mean, like I said, I'm like I don't follow cricket at all. So for me, it did not have at least initially when I saw him, like it wasn't the same. It was only later I realized like what just happened, who I just met. Like this guy's a legend, So yeah, so that was working with Sachin. The picture you're talking in reference to Amir, that was the first time I met him, and it was again like Bombay Talkies. So obviously this is at a time when I used to like Amir. Initially, like afterwards, my sort of what do you say? I've been
not really. What do you say?
You're struggling to
stop becoming a fan of him. Yeah, stop becoming a fan of him.
I used to be a fan. So it was at that time when I met him. So he came, he did his thing. We were, it all went very smoothly. So the choreographer's assistants, they knew I wanted a picture with him, but I didn't say I didn't tell him like, can I get a picture? So as he's about to leave, he's about to get in his vehicle and about to leave is when the choreographer assistant was like, come with me, and he like took the camera from my hand and he dragged me and was like, sir, he wants a picture with you. I was like, ha, come. And I was just like, I don't know what to say. I was just so happy. That's not the picture that's up there. That's one of the working stills they put up. But I have another picture where I'm standing with him as he's about to enter his car. And that is probably the first and only time I've actually clicked the photo with a star.
That I asked for a photo with somebody.
And
that was
actually on your website. You have a lot of candid pics with stars.
Yeah.
It's perfectly in frame and looks real good. And so it's like real nice too.
It's what
picture yourself, when we picture ourselves in these positions, we would wonder like probably what would we be doing given that situation. So it's all like kash mein hota, that sort of feeling there.
Like here's the thing, when you're the one with the camera, you don't get pictures of yourself. You're the one clicking everybody's pictures. But fortunately in those instances, people are shown kindness and taken on their phone, or in case of Shah Rukh, it was somebody, the stills photographer, clicked that picture. And here's the funny thing, I worked on 2 projects with Shah Rukh Khan, each movie lasting in like some 3 months of shoot at least. So that's like 90 days each project, and I will have 1 picture. And that too, my face is all covered up. But yeah, so I told the photographer afterwards, like, you should have told me at least you were clicking a picture. I would have removed my face, the mask. But there's this, what do you say, that phrase in Watchmen, who watches the watchman? So it's like, who photographs the photographer? That's what I say.
Perhaps we need someone to do that too. Like, cinema is being worked out, and then you describe how the cinematic process is happening, the different people working.
Yeah. So, like,
the whole
sorry?
time you bring that to us. So probably needs a photographer to take his photographs. It works algorithmically well in this particular case specifically.
Yeah, but even if I do not have pictures with them, there's a lot of experience that you have. You get to be there in that moment, and you get to see how things happen. So, like, your only job on set is to sit and observe. Because you're documenting everything that's happening. So you're basically observing how the actors are going through their process, how the director is doing his process, what the cinematographer is doing. So you're just standing there and watching, and you get paid to do that. Be on set and just watch what they're doing, record it, and you get paid for it, which is, not bad. And like, you've seen how different people work in different manners, how different directors approach things, which is why, like, I have a huge deal of respect for Shah Rukh as an actor and as a professional.
Let's look at your transition from all of this to your own studio house. You have your 7:3 studio.
Yeah.
How was that? And
so,
what made you bring it up in the first place, and what is it doing?
So like I told you earlier, I was working in film tent, and I quit my job after I finished my work on Raees. So that was, I believe, mid 2016, I believe. And then I started.
Sorry?
I have a date. It's November 2016.
Yeah, it was.
So some details have come through.
Yeah, I mean, it was a long process, because like for a while I wanted to move on to different things. Especially I wanted to move out of behind the scenes, because here's the thing, like, when I fell in love with films, it was because I could see this process of how movies are made. So the kind of reverence that, say, Hollywood gives to their behind the scenes is not what Bollywood gives to theirs. For them, behind the scenes is merely a marketing gimmick, So they never want to see any informational content or something that can educate people. But we get the feedback from marketing teams, such as, we want to see fun on set. We want to see actors laughing and goofing around on set. So these are usually what we have to end up cutting and putting out there online. So you start off, the excitement starts getting worn down. Like all that, when you initially enter the industry, you're full of enthusiasm and excitement, and it just eats you away. All these things. Like, I never had a good experience with any marketing teams, having worked on all these movies, be it Excel or UTV or Dharma. We were always at odds.
It's like a means to an end, huh?
Yeah, they don't even care about the kind of content you put out, as long as you put out content. like UTV had this very ridiculous requirement. You have to give them 25 behind the scenes videos. Doesn't matter the quality, they just want the number.
As much as they can.
Yeah.
So, and it's always a struggle, like how do you tell an interesting story without stretching things out? And like, so on Kai Poche, that was one of the requirements, like they need 25 snippets, and we were making like ridiculous behind the scenes story on injuries on set, and I was watching it like, what are we doing? What is this? So towards the end of
Injuries on set, break a leg, shall we?
I wish somebody broke a leg. That would have been far more interesting. It's like somebody got a scrape because they were playing cricket and fell down, Like, ridiculous stuff. But hey, it hit the number, so I guess it did its job, I guess.
That's really good. Apart from Three Idiots that come from the same group of script writing groups, I enjoy it. Three Idiots is great, and then Kai Poche. The rest of them sort of forgettable, but then this was one.
I think
I still
a lot of Kai Poche's success you can attribute it to the director and how the actors brought it to life.
You could relate to a lot of the struggles of those characters. They're young, they want to do something different.
And the main cast were all I think it was their debut performance for Rajkumar Rao and Sushant Singh Rajput, and as well as Amit Saad.
Amit Saad, yeah. So I think except for Rajkumar, had done a cup film before that, I believe. But for Sushant and Amit Saad, they were transitioning from TV. In fact, Sushant was the one who was, in terms of film experience, Sushant was the least experienced of the three of them. For him, it was his first feature. And like, so how they imbued those characters and how they brought it to life, you could, anybody who's watching it could relate to at least one of them. That was what was beautiful about it. That's why that movie has that kind of legacy that, still is beloved by a lot of people. And of course, the director had a certain kind of vision, and he stuck to that vision. And that was in fact my first movie, because that was the first to release. So in fact, that was my first movie. So considering the news that has happened recently, it was like very, I don't know what words to describe those feelings were, but yeah, it was difficult. Because I remember going to interview Sushant for the behind the scenes. I think I did like an hour-long interview with him. So having met him in his beginning stages of his film career, and to see what has happened now, it's quite. It makes you reflect back on a lot of things. So having worked, so getting back to your question, how did I start my own company? So I wanted to move away from behind the scenes, because I wasn't feeling like behind the scenes in India is getting the same level of appreciation that, say, behind the scenes in Hollywood. So also by then I had met a lot of people in the industry. I met a lot of friends, and we all wanted to do something different. We all wanted to leave our mark, start on our journeys of making our own films. And so you're out of a job, you're sitting at home figuring out what to do, and you start getting offers for ads, still behind the scenes, but ads. So we figured, okay, what if it pays the bill, let it pay the bill. So in our free time, we used to sit and write. So once we started, so me and a partner of mine named Jay Jha, we started picking up all these work. So eventually they used to ask, like, do you guys have a company? So we figured, in our conversations among ourselves, we figured, why not, let's start something, if we've been working together for almost a year now, just the two of us, and we don't even have a name. So that's when that whole process started of, okay, let's call it this. The name itself took quite a long time. Then
sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, 7:3 studios.
Yeah. So it started like, hey, let's call it like 16:9 or 4:3 with the aspect ratio.
So like you bounce back and forth, and it reached 7:3. So once we found the name, we found the meaning. So if somebody asks, oh, what does it mean? Yeah, we say it's 7 colors and 3 dimensions.
Oh, wow.
But
Oh,
it's
wow.
something we discovered after
So this is
we
like
got
from
the
Shining. They write down red rum, and then later on people are like, oh, it's murder. It makes sense. A lot of people actually realize it like really late on that it means murder from the other side around.
Yeah, so the name came first, and yeah. So since then we came to, like I was told many times, we are considered premium in terms of the kind of work we do and how much we charge. We came to be known as premium in terms of behind the scenes in Bombay. So most of our work were ad related, and it was in that instances that I got called and asked to do Newton. So they had already somebody had already shot the behind the scenes. They had the footage lying around. So they asked, will you edit it? And I was like, okay, cool. But so when you're working on that project at the time, you had no idea where this is going to go. Nobody thought like this will go on to get selected for an for the India's entry into the Oscars. Like I couldn't even think about it, but I was just like, oh, this is a really cool film. They invited me to watch the movie. I saw the movie. It was very nice. Like gave me an idea of how to go about the behind the scenes. Unfortunately, I think I edited about 6 videos or 7 videos for them. Only 3 or 4 of them are online. Some they chose not to put it out. One was there was a snippet on how they got the local Adivasis to act in the film. Which is a very interesting. Yeah, so imagine these people are not even seen a camera before, and they're asked to perform in front of it. It's a very surreal experience. Like we are so, it makes you realize what we take for granted. And these people who live in the forest and who live off the forest, they haven't even seen these things before. So, like all those things I put in that video, but they felt it would be too controversial, so they chose not to release it.
I mean, it's their call.
I saw the one I
Thankfully-
think which had the production design where they talk about the production design. That one is on YouTube, I think.
Yeah, the one how they made the set So I watched the movie and then I watched the footage and then I realized the entire thing they made. It was not like they found a old abandoned school in the middle of a forest, because that's what I felt when I saw the movie, but that was not the case. So it's a rare privilege to work on such movies where even the creators of the movie want the world to know how they did this. But it's a director driven behind the scenes. Like they want the world to know the kind of pain and time it took to do a lot of the things that you see. A lot of times people don't realize the most amount of time that takes on a movie is things that takes place in a matter of seconds in a film. Because the amount of preparation time, the amount of safety checks and research that goes into maybe say one explosion, which is there for 2 seconds in the film, might have taken 3 weeks, to prep and design. If you have to blow up a car or an entire set itself, which when you're watching the movie you do not realize, but when you're there, things that take the easiest things will be more appreciated usually. That's one of the joys of working on behind the scenes. You get to see all these inside experiences.
Behind the scenes of Tumbad.
Yeah.
How did
Oh, yeah.
Tumbad come up?
So I got a call from a friend who got the offer in the first place, because she got me Newton, so I did Newton with her. She got the project. She called me, will you edit it? I'm like, yeah, sure. So similarly, we got this call for Tumbad. So I went in. So imagine when I got the call, at the time there was nothing about this movie online. There's hardly any information. All I could find was it has been in the making for a long time and nothing else. So I went into the meeting, met the producer / director Soham and the co-director Adesh. And even in the first meeting, they are still not told me what the movie is about. They're telling me, and there are these creatures effects and prosthetics, and I'm like, creature effects and prosthetics in an Indian cinema? What movie is this? And then they tell me, oh, the music is composed by the composer of Assassin's Creed. And I'm like, Assassin's Creed? Like who? Jesper? You got Jesper? And like, so this is all happening in my head, by the way. Like, what are they talking about? What is this movie? So then they give me the footage. Like, they made me sign an NDA, and they gave me the footage. At that time, I usually come home, visit Kerala during Eid, and so I was told them that I'm going to Kerala for a couple of weeks, and so I won't be able to start work immediately. So they said, okay, we'll give you one hard drive. Here's the NDA, sign it. So I took the hard drive and came here, and that's when the first floods happened. So I was like absolutely stuck here. So I had a lot of time, and I was going through the footage, and I couldn't believe the things I was seeing. Like, and also the things that I was seeing is not what you see in the final film. So here's the interesting thing about this movie. In 2012, they shot the entire film, start to finish. Rahi directed it. Rahi made an edit of the movie, which I've seen, and unfortunately I couldn't, I wanted to take a copy of it, but it was not allowed. So the first cut of the movie has no soundtrack. It's only driven by sound effects, and a lot of the plot points that you see now is not there in that film. So one of the design philosophy of Rahi was the movie should only be driven by the sound effects. So in the entire movie you hear rain, right? There's rain all the time. So that would have been the soundscape of the film. So, and it was very interesting choices. You can see what this person was trying to achieve, very unconventional for Indian cinema. But it just wasn't working, I think, for the filmmakers, and they realized there is something more to be done here. It can be greater than what it already is. So, spoilers for the film. In the movie that you guys have seen, when they go down to the womb, they go down the well and they enter where the demon is, where Hastar is. It's shaped to look like a womb, but originally it was just a regular stone room, when they shot the movie the first time. So just a small stone room, and the original ending was also very different. They get trapped in that room.
That's when they brought in Anand Gandhi on the project, and few more people got in. Sorry, Ship of Theseus. Yes. Yeah.
So a lot of people got involved, and they had a long discussion on how to fix this movie. So after shooting in 2012, 13, 14, in 2014 they did major reshoots, which was mostly outdoors. So they went back to the old location. They even built new sets, and they spent a lot of money. There was one set which was, I think, I don't know how many crores. This big set they built on a river bank, which you can see in the movie for very brief seconds.
When they leave the place, huh? Oh yeah.
Like a marketplace, a whole marketplace they had constructed. But
they had a lot of scenes in there. But when they were editing the film, they had to remove those scenes. So imagine you spend crores of rupees on a set, and it's there in the movie for a few seconds. Imagine the pains of a producer. I had the editor tell me, if she knew earlier, she would have tried something to keep it in the movie. It was after they cut it out that the producer told her, that is a very expensive set, and the editor felt very bad. So in 2014, they reshot a lot of exterior portions, and in 2015 they did I think a month or two of interiors. So they reshot the entire womb. They reshot a lot of house interiors and things like that. So over the course of 3 years, they shot the movie twice. And then after finishing it in 2015, it took another 3 years for the movie to even come out. For example, the visual effects, none of the companies in the country was ready to do it. Because so when you shoot for VFX, when you have a VFX element in your shot, you need to shoot for that in mind. You need to have tracking markers, and you need to have lighting references. Yeah. So when these guys shot it, they did not shoot it with VFX in mind, because at the time they were like, oh, we don't need to do VFX. But it is after one of the edits were done that they realized like they'll have to go with the VFX. So basically it's not that it's impossible, it's just a lot of work.
There's no clear VFX breakdown of Tumba, right? Like
Unfortunately, yeah, because we had planned a behind the scenes video on the visual effects,
but we just didn't have the time, and also the company that did the visual effects is a company I think in Netherlands. I'm not sure. It's a company called Film I Vast is the name of the company. I might be saying that wrong. So it's a company, I don't know, Norway or Netherlands someplace, and very small team, I think 30 to 50 people, small company, and they agreed to do the film within the budget and within the time frame that the filmmakers had, and they delivered in that time. And considering under what do you say, the restraints that they had, the lack of information regarding certain things, because usually if you're doing multiple you have a motion controlled camera.
sorry,
there's one scene, like when you speak of this, I'm visually drawn to this one scene where multiple hustlers appear.
yes,
Right. So I mean,
for
how
that,
difficult would it have been to have shot all those and make it happen without motion tracking in a naturally lit environment, as I'm told?
yeah, so they only had that single source of lighting. That one lamp you see is the only source of lighting, and the multiple. So they only had 3 costumes for Hustar. So they only had 3 people in a suit, and the rest of the people
So
were
Hustar
all.
was people in suits.
It was originally.
We didn't know that. Like when you look at it, we think it's like a CGI creation. It looks real, but then it's like so surreal that you can't expect people to be putting masks of Hustar and sitting inside that.
So that's the thing. So
they had designed a whole look of him. If you see it in the behind the scenes, I sort of tried to show as much as I could at that time, as much as the filmmakers would let me show, I tried to reveal Hustar as much as I can. So you can see brief glimpses of people in suits, them designing the look of the creature. Again, this is very unusual for an Indian cinema. I was just so excited, because these are the kind of stuff like I said, Lord of the Rings. Seeing this in Lord of the Rings when they design all the creatures. Getting to see something like that in an Indian cinema was just amazing, and that I was getting to tell the story was just even more amazing for me. I just couldn't believe that I get to work on this film. And I get to tell this story. So when they shot the climax, they had only costumes for 3 people. So the remainder of the other 4 or 5 of them were just normal people in a red, skin tight leotard or something. And so all the shots, they did it handheld, no motion controlled camera. So it's not like they can do a clean pass and then just pass with the creatures or pass with the actors, and the separate plates that they take normally when a visual effect shot is involved. So despite all those constraints, these people still managed to deliver a convincing enough creature for considering the amount of budget that Indian movies tend to have, to develop not just one CG creature but multiples of those and try to match that lighting. It's crazy, given the time and all the resources that they had, what they pulled off, I feel it's amazing.
So yeah, so what many people don't
know is
that.
Did you enjoy the first film that you saw, the edit?
Yeah, so the first version of Tumbar you're talking about.
The first version.
Yeah, so the first version, it was just a guy in a suit, and it looked very odd. It looked very, very strange. And the funny thing is, they had a motion control camera for the first shoot.
They shot this with a red camera, right?
Yes, they had a red camera. Yeah.
They even used a Sony A7 for some of the scenes, where there's a shot where it's natural lighting, just a single lamp, like a real lamp flame is the source of light. Like all the other lamps, they had this highly powerful bulb in it, but there was a certain scenes where it was just the actual flame from the lamp, and they used a Sony, I think A7S for those sequences, which is again impressive considering Like normally you used to see, big project films, like the DOP will just put hundreds of lights and just cutters and all those diffusion, and there you can't even step anywhere on the floor, you can't stand anywhere because somewhere your shadow is coming or some reflection is appearing somewhere. And here's this one movie where they use a single source of light.
Just
It's
interesting
nice
to see.
because in Hollywood, right? In Hollywood, they have in the back in the day when they used to have a lot of horror movies and movies shot at night. These movies have this blue tinge to it. So when you
Yes.
shoot scenes in the night, it's always bluey color, and then it's not really interesting to watch. It no longer looks natural. It looks like you're shooting it in blue light. It looks
Yes,
static,
yes.
but the screening and the color grading is all off. But then in Tumbad, it's like you're there in the scene, listening to everything happening. It's like an experience that's all around you. I didn't get to see it on the theater in the theaters, but then I saw it on Amazon Prime, and then the experience then itself was nice. So Rohit and I we were discussing that probably we should have seen to the theaters, but it was not
We
like
should have
advertised
seen
that
it.
much too. It really went under the radars, and people like Abhiram sitting there totally ignorantly whatever was happening.
I have no
See, it
idea
was
about
very
this.
strange because I was working out of their office for when I was working on the behind the scenes for this. So when the movie came out,
Even before the movie came out, they were struggling how to sell the movie.
because the movie does not have a
They
recognizable
sold
face.
it as a horror movie.
So that's the thing. There were a lot of things. So the filmmakers made the movie. Heroes was supposed to distribute it and release it. Heroes also handle some of the marketing aspects. But here's the thing: Bollywood is used to, not just Bollywood, most Indian cinema is used to marketing their movies in a specific manner. You have a star or a recognizable face. You have songs. If you don't have those, you'll have a song or multiple songs, an item song and things like that. But here comes this movie, which is not horror. Even the filmmakers say this is not horror. They don't have a star. If somebody asks me, "Oh, who's the actor in it?" I say Soham Shah. Nobody recognizes him. If I say he's the producer and he's also acted in Ship of Theseus, people will be like, "What?" Because only film savvy people are aware of Ship of Theseus. Your regular audiences, do not know it. And there are no songs in the movie. If I tell them, "Oh, the composer of Assassin's Creed did the soundtrack," it's not going to change anybody's, unless the person is a gamer, nobody's going to pay attention. So the marketing teams were not used to this kind of film. They didn't know how to sell it. So that's why the trailer comes off as a horror film. I've had friends who were refusing to watch it because, "Oh, it's a horror film, I'm not watching it." And I had to beg them, "It is not a horror film, watch it, check it out." And they saw it and they changed their opinion. "Yeah, you're right, this is not a horror film." And everybody's like, why did they mess up the marketing of this movie so badly? I think the marketing teams did not know how to sell it, and I think on the filmmakers' part, they just wanted the movie to come out because they had been with this movie for almost 6 years. I think they just wanted to move on to something else. Like, let's just get this out the door.
Though Naseef, you call it a non-horror kind of a movie. There's one element which still stands out is still scary. I've had bad dreams after watching it, and 2-3 times I've seen Tumbad. This particular scene in the beginning still stands out. Where there is this one particular grandmother, and then she has this really, really horrific voice, and then she speaks like a patta. The amount of goosebumps and the ringing sound it brings to you. That is horror for me, even though the whole movie's idea might not be one. That was one hell of a scary scene. The one they go with the candle, he goes in search of his grandmother, and then they have the scenes that follow up immediately are really scary though.
What scares us is what scares us, and it might not be scary for other people. But one of the philosophies when they were making the movie was not to have jump scares.
There's one.
Right.
I can't recall which one you're talking about.
The grandmother comes and then she pulls. Him. Thing.
But they don't build it up like it's a jump scare. Jump scare is like suddenly, everything is quiet and suddenly a loud noise. But you sort of see the grandmother before the action kicks in. But
again, if you find it scary, then
I don't usually find horror movies scary, the usual ghost ones, but this one I found scary. I think it's the atmosphere that it was made in.
Yeah.
The
It
whole,
was
the
filled
whole
with red
color
and
palette.
So that's another strong point of the film, you know, besides the music and the story and the atmosphere. Like for example, the set, you know, the production designers on the film, like they've done like exceptional job in giving that the house, you know, or the womb, or just all the locations make it feel like a real lived-in place, you know. Like it's always easy for me to spot when a movie on a set, you can tell if it's a fake rock or a real rock. You know, you can easily spot it. But in this film, like when you see the rocks inside the house, the kind of layered brick sort of rocks that they used, you know, it's plaster, but the kind of texture they gave it it feels real. Like that's sort of the exceptional work that you know everybody put into this film, because they all knew that this is a very unusual project, very once in a lifetime opportunity to do this kind of work on a movie like this. So they put in their best, and you can see that in the end result. Like you actually feel like this place existed, you know, this one hut in the top of a hill, you know, all those, like, it sells you on the atmosphere.
Plus, the womb scenes were also very frightening for me. I don't know why. I just scared a lot.
Again, it's interesting how, like, given time, how ideas can evolve and change, because, you know, all those ideas came in much later during the, you know, like I said, they shot the movie once and they're planning how to make it better, and that's how those ideas evolved, you know. So like the prologue you see in the movie, the co-director Adesh keeps saying, the prologue in the movie is one of the last things that they made, because we need to answer questions that is not being answered by the film. So let's take all those questions which are not answered by the film, and let's try to answer all of that in this opening section. And it takes its own shape, and it, you know, pulls you into the film. The first time I saw this movie, the first screening that they gave me, I had to step out, and I was so happy to see sunlight.
Because the entire movie is just dark and raining. Like I stepped out, I looked up in the sky, I'm like, oh, thank God it's blue sky. But
it's the atmosphere is very dreary, and after a point it gets to you.
Like even the filmmakers struggle to find comparisons, like what do we say this movie is like? And I could only compare it to, say, a Del Toro film like Pan's Labyrinth. Like that was the closest comparison I could even give.
Probably the creature depictions and all that.
Yeah.
Like the kind of not just the creature designs and the vibe and the atmosphere that the movie gives. You know, that the closest I could compare it to was a Del Toro film, and even that is not a fair comparison. So the original ending of the version that they made in 2012 ended on a very dark note, where the creature, where all the hustlers appear, and they are trapped there, and the flame is dying, and the rope gets cut by one of the creatures, and they are trapped. That was the original ending. You know, so both father and son is trapped in the room. And when they reshot everything, they had 3 different endings. One was to stick with the original. One was the one which we saw, where the son chooses not to follow in his father's path and break the cycle, you know. And there was a third ending which they actually shot, and I was lucky enough to see it, and they even gave me permission to use it in one of the behind the scenes videos, which you can see online. The alternate ending, which the son does not break the cycle. So when the son comes out of the womb, out of the well, and he sees his father in that cursed state, the ending of the film is the son dragging his father away from the fort, the Wada. So like, you know, yeah, like the son chooses to continue this.
That would have been a dark end. That would have been way more dark than the previous 2 endings.
And it's not something like, oh, like, you know, we discussed an idea, like they actually shot it.
The third one would have fit into, I believe. Because the world really changes. People don't change much. People stick to the ways and don't want to change habits.
But that's what makes it more exciting for me, because these are not something you usually see in Bollywood. Such kind of
It's
thought
kind of
process that go
ambiguous
into
too.
it.
It's kind of ambiguous too. Like people can relate to whatever they want, put in whatever sort of allegory that they want, relate it to any incident that they want. So there's like multiple interpretations that can come from it. Yet there's a definite ending. It's not like open-ended and totally open-ended and people can do whatever they want and think about it. Some sort of concept to it, which is what really resonated with me.
Like I said, there were a lot more stories that I wish I could have told, but time permitting, there's only so much I could do. You know, when you have 3 years worth of footage to edit and tell behind the scenes stories of, you know, it was just it's crazy amount of footage to go through. Like there were times where I was beating my head against a wall, just like how do I do this? We conducted extensive interviews, you know, with most of the key crew members and actors of the film. And you get a lot of interesting stories, but you must also understand it's been so many years, so that they have to like recollect things that happened 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and try to do, you know. But it was a fun, like probably the most fulfilling experience I've had working on behind the scenes on a film. You know, like where you absolutely care about some project, like you pour yourself into it and try to, you know, you also put in your best and give the best product you can. Like there have been projects where you're like, it's just another job. I'll just do it, like by the numbers, and okay, I have fun on set, actors laughing. Yeah, here you go, take it, you know, bye. But this was like, I was like involved in it. And I was like, I'm also like lucky in terms of the access the filmmakers gave me, you know. They also wanted things to be known. Like they want the world to know this is the kind of pains that they went through to make this project happen.
So you've spent your time in Kochi till your 10th standard, and then you went to Bombay and got settled there. So you are basically a Kochiite, like we discussed, and Malayalam is your native tongue. And what is your taste in Malayalam movies for the audience around? People listening to this would primarily be Malayalam watchers, because generally this is coming from Kerala. And then what is your take on Malayalam cinema, and then your love for it or not?
So growing up, my taste was like any other kid growing up around those times. You know, it's either a Mammootty fan or a Mohanlal fan. You know, despite being either of those, you also like Dilip and you know all those things. I remember standing in line 3 hours to get tickets for Belram versus Taradas. All those. now I laugh about it. So, but. You know, so when I went to film school, get a more exposures of what world cinema is and things like that, then your opinion starts changing about the kind of movies you used to enjoy. You know, you realize maybe they were not as good, but then other movies, your opinion rises. You know, like okay, this is much better than what I thought it was. And then since started working in Bollywood, then you sort of see the trend in Bollywood, like the quality of films. Like I said, there are many movies that I worked on that I've not seen myself because it just doesn't interest me. But since the past decade, more than a decade ago, like that trend, that shift started happening in Malayalam cinema. And it's, I don't know if people are aware, but it also got noticed by people outside of Kerala. There is a big audience for Malayalam cinema in Bombay. Like a lot of my known Malu friends, they watch Malayalam cinema. Like I've even had experience where a friend came and started singing songs to me from Tattathin Marayathu, and I was shocked. Like I couldn't say anything. Like so, like they were like Nivin Pauly. Oh my God, Nivin Pauly. I'm like, yeah, calm down, you know. So they are appreciating Malayalam cinema far more than what Bollywood does. Personally, this is my opinion. Like nobody has to subscribe to this thought or even agree to it. But I feel Chapakurish was the movies that changed.
Yeah. Traffic,
Chapakurish. Yeah, Asamitano.
So I feel like that's when things started changing, because even I remember seeing the promotional content. I've not seen the movie, but like even seeing the promotional material for the film, I felt this looks very different from a conventional cinema.
It was. I mean, I saw it at that time. I was kind of used to seeing a different brand of Malayalam cinema. And then when I saw this film, I was not sure to actually make an opinion regarding how the cinema is. So I'm like, okay, this is different. But with time and passage of time, I've realized that, this probably, was different and was explored in a different manner. And that stands out too.
And also, and those generation of actors that came up post Chapa Kurish, like with starting with Fahad, then Vineet, and then Nivin and Dulkar, and they also, like, they were not afraid to do movies that were not jingoistic, that macho man, which personally I do not enjoy such kind of films. So I feel like that's when that change started coming in. When you have a scene in Kumblangi where Saji breaks down crying, where he's speaking to a psychiatrist and he breaks down. That is something that you can relate to. That makes you feel like this is a human being. He's got emotions, and you can relate to. A person goes through many emotions a day, and here is a person going through that on screen. Our heroes, that what we are used to, they never go through any emotions.
Like embodiments of perfect.
Yeah, the Maryada Purush.
Yes, Maryada Purush.
So I think that's when the change started happening. So since Malayalam cinema does not have the kind of budget that Bollywood can afford, so you don't throw money on spectacle over here. You throw money on content over here, because again, the audience is smaller also. So you need to cater to that. Yeah, because we are not just watching Malayalam cinema, right? We are also watching English. In English, we watch English films in English. We don't get dubbed versions. We watch Hindi movies. We watch Tamil, and to an extent maybe Telugu and Kannada. All those language movie releases here, but you can't say the same for other parts of the country. Maybe metropolitan cities will get, like Bombay, you can get Malayalam cinemas, but you have to go a bit far to the outskirts of the city to watch those movies, because that's where the Malayalam speaking population are.
With the advent of multiplexes, it's changed a little bit though, I believe.
Yeah, it has.
It's more accessible now.
Yeah.
Movies do come out now, but again, it's still, you won't find these movies, Malayalam movies, playing in the heart of the city, where you'll find 3-4 multiplexes back to back. Movies are not releasing there. Like I have to take a 1 hour taxi drive to get to the theater which will show Malayalam cinemas. I have to go to the next district to watch a Telugu film, but audience are paying attention thanks to the OTT platforms where you can watch it subtitled. So
I think that's how Kumblangi Nights really became.
And also because
yeah,
Kumblangi was a lot of people were praising the film that I know from the
even the country famous critics like Anupama Chopra, Rajiv Masan. I think they all reviewed it.
People have become aware that Malayalam cinema has something to offer that Bollywood is not offering at the moment.
And it was a conversation between me and a friend of mine that said, we have the script which they've been trying to make it in Hindi for a long time, and it's a smaller budget and all those things. So why don't you attempt this in Kerala? And this is when this whole conversation started of me coming to Kerala and trying to see if I can, get my first footsteps over here. So that's when I shifted last year, mid of 2019, I shifted to Kerala. So hopefully, I'm in conversation right now. I think I can say it here. I've been asked to give a narration. Hopefully it goes well, and hopefully I hope I have good news, but however it turns out, it is still a first step. So I need to go and prepare for my narration, I need to memorize the entire 90-page script, all those things. So my footsteps in Malayalam industry is just starting, because I hardly, I don't know anybody here. Having worked in Hindi cinema, I only know people in the Bollywood industry. Malayalam cinema is I know nobody. But
it's you have to take
let's hope you have.
Let's hope you have a strong foot.
Thank you.
One time. And more coming to the podcast and talking to us.
Inshallah. Thank you.
No, well, I have one question I've wanted to ask ever since I
Okay.
first met you, sometime back in the
Okay.
gym once, and then you talked about all of these things. If you could make a movie of any extent right now, which actors would you like to work with, and what genre would you like to work with?
Oh, that's a difficult one. See, here's the thing. I'm a dreamer. Like, I keep coming up with ideas. Like, I'm bad at putting them down into words, but like, coming up with ideas, like I do that a lot. But there was this sort of a dream project of mine, which, like, how do I say it? Because I don't want to give away too much. Also, if I do end up wanting to make it one day, but. Something along the veins of Indiana Jones, an adventure film, because India is such a big country and we have such a rich history. Like, how have we not made a movie like that? So I have this whole series planned out, and I even have actors in mind.
Hopefully Ranbir.
Ranveer?
Hopefully.
Ranveer, okay.
Not Ranveer.
Ranveer. Oh,
Ranbir Kapoor.
he'd be a good fit. I can see him as an Indiana Jones kind of character. It's,
Yeah, so
it's kind of,
it's one-
it's kind of, he sort of picturizes, I mean, you can sort of picturize him in any role. Actually, it works out. People have talked about him being Harry Potter, and then the roles that you can put him in, and he actually delivers. That's wonderful to think about it.
So me and a writer friend of mine, when I discussed the ideas with him, we were like, so I have two protagonists in this film. So it's not just a sole lead character. It's like two friends who, whose relationship is as close as brothers, but you need some friction. So there are, they're not seeing eye to eye, all those sort of drama, all that stuff. So like, who can stand up against Ranbir? And we thought for a long time, like, which actor can, appear opposite Ranbir and still hold his ground? And we couldn't think of an actor. I mean, I'm sure there are people who are well equipped to do it, but at that time, this is like 3-4 years ago.
Someone in mind right now?
Ever since then, Ranveer has gone on to showcase his skills.
Mm-hmm.
His skills in Gully Boy, his performance in Bajirao. I especially love his performance in Dil Dhadakne though, because up to that point, you've only seen a version of him that is hyper, and he's also hyper in real life. He's like always full of energy. Just even when he comes into set, he comes in set also like all full energy. Like it's exhausting to see him, like that, where you get tired just from his energy. So to see a movie in Dil Dhadakne though where he's normal, I was like, oh, so this guy can do that. So. Yeah, so since then, I've been toying around maybe Ranveer and Ranbir, but see, you can dream as much as you want, but it actually happening is, God knows. By the time if I do ever end up making it, it will be different actors who were as popular at the time. I don't know. But yeah, this is a dream project. Yeah, I mean, as much like you said earlier that you use Discord for your your multiplayer games. Like, I'm as big a fan of video games as I am of films. In fact, I'm maybe more fan of video games than I am of films.
So what's your source of console? Do you play on console, PC?
I'm primarily on PlayStation. So a lot of my movie choices, the kind of stories I want to tell are also influenced by a lot of video games. And, because these days even video game as a medium has evolved to a point where they can tell stories of film caliber. So like just the other day, I think Last of Us Part 2 just came out yesterday, I believe. And even just watching the trailer, it's as good as any Oscar worthy film.
They put a lot of effort onto these things right now. The quality of the amount of looking at it, you really want to get to be part of it now. The universe that they've created too, it's amazing, really.
So again, like when it comes to video games, India is pretty much not even on the map, either in terms of games being made or gaming content being made.
So there's this fertile ground for that.
Yeah, like again, like a long, far away dream of mine is to eventually make a game also. Like I even have like it's only just one concept I have, and if it's just that one thing I make, I'm more than happy. I'll die a happy person. But it's I'm constantly developing that idea. So yeah, so if like if I do make it somewhere as a filmmaker, then eventually down the line I hope to turn to game development as well. Like I don't know anything about programming, but you hire people for that, right?
It's the vision that matters.
Like for example, you're aware of Hideo Kojima,
No.
the Metal Gear series, Death Stranding.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
he was somebody who wanted to get into making films when he started out some 30 plus years ago. He wanted to make movies and he couldn't get a foothold into the industry, so he joined a company and started helping in video game, and now he makes games that have narratives that are bigger than films, and he gets to work with professional actors and directors, and like he's doing more than what the movie medium will now be restricting to him, because he's able to do so much more in video games than as a movie director. It's just interesting, where you want to go down one path but you end up in another, but
you achieve
How
more.
life diversifies.
Yeah.
if you haven't played the Metal Gear series, I would definitely recommend.
I haven't played.
Yeah. Some of those games
How
are a
did you
bit difficult
find
to
the Assassin's Creed movie by Michael Fassbender?
Oh man, I don't know what to say. Like I saw it once. I liked the action. I liked some of the cinematography, but they just went too philosophical on it.
too philosophical.
Fassbender is great. I love Fassbender. Seen him in Alien Covenant, Alien Prometheus, and all of those movies.
Let's not
He
talk about
elevates the
Alien.
material. I hold real close to my heart, but then it's disappointing the last two movies.
I love the Alien franchise.
Especially the first two films, the only ones, James Cameron.
But
The third
and I
one's
was
sort of fine too, I believe. Like they changed the storyline a little bit here and there, killed off certain characters, but then I still like it because David Fincher.
my issues with the third film is they destroy all the development that the second film does.
Previously done.
Yeah, because they just kill off all the characters that survived the second movie without even showing them. They just kill them off screen, and that's just insulting to those characters. Like as a viewer, I'm invested 2 hours of my life watching this movie. I invested my emotions in these characters, and the third movie comes around and it's like, oh, those characters that you like, dead.
Let's move
There
on.
was a lot of production interference, right? The big studios wanted to be made in a particular manner, and then
if you
Fincher wanted
can-
it in his own vision.
If you can get your hands on the behind the scenes for the Alien 3s, like how that movie happened, it's very interesting.
Difference in visual effects started at that point. They were using puppet structures for that, and then CGI in its true form started coming up in places in the Alien 3 film. Like all the Alien movies have been directed by big people too. Like all big directors are doing really, really well right now. All of it. And then Ridley Scott coming back right now and sort of losing his way, I believe. I still want to watch more though. It's fun to see.
Here's the thing about Prometheus. I was super hyped for the film when they announced it, and like you're watching the trailer and you're watching all the analysis, you're going frame by frame to see all the hidden things. But the movie comes out and just like I don't know. I don't have words to say how disappointing that movie was. Like, though, if it would have been like if it didn't have those connections to Alien, it would have been a better film. But here's this, because see, the fun of the first movie is when you see that derelict spaceship, when you see the space jockey, the mystery of who these things are is as much as fun when you are imagining it. You don't need that answer. You don't want that answer, and that is not even the point of the film. They appear in the beginning of the movie and they're forgotten for the rest of the film. But when Ridley Scott decided to tell the origin story, it's something that was not needed, because now if you go back and watch the first movie, it probably will ruin that experience for you. And I'm sort of thankful that Disney now owns the rights to the film, to the series.
Because Disney bought Fox.
Like we discussed, it's all like family content, and the Alien has
Yeah.
been as R-rated as it can be. So how is that going to be factoring into the scheme of things?
I think even if Disney proceeds to make a new Alien film, it will still come under the banner of 20th Century Fox. And whatever family-friendly stuff they will release under the Disney banner, and things that, because they want to make money at the end of the day. So, R-rated or not, they will.
So they'll release it
Apparently,
under
Ridley
another
Scott
banner.
wants to make a new film too. Alien 5 is
Correct.
coming according to him. So he's working on. It's not like stopping. It's the same thing. He's trying to connect it more and more to back to
I hope
LV
Disney.
Fusion.
I hope Disney says no.
Let it because I saw Alien Covenant and I was so angry. I walked out of the theater so angry, like no more.
The first movie that I was just Alien, and this was at the ripe age of 6. I watched Alien with my mom. I'm sure they should not have showed me that, but then that's is still one of my favorite movies that I hold very close to my heart. Alien and Predator, because you see these people, you see these characters. In Predator, you had Arnold Schwarzenegger. In Aliens, you had Ripley Sigourney Weaver. These guys, you want to be them ultimately, because they're the exact representation of the typical characters that you want to be in life. So they were very influencing. But then right now, the way they're making films right now with the new Predator film with Shane Black at the helm, and then this Alien disaster, it's sort of disappointing, because films that have like created the path that you've always wanted to follow, and then
Have you seen the concept that Neil Blomkamp had for a potential
definitely
alien film?
there's one museum in England somewhere where they have all the xenomorph designs, what they came up with, the structures, the mandibles, and all that. I actually, there's some particular journal that they published, and I think he won some prize too.
This is Neil Blomkamp had a potential idea for a new Alien film.
Before
Neil
Prometheus
Blomkamp
came
from District 9.
District 9, yes. So
Yes.
before Prometheus
yes.
came out, or after Prometheus came out, he had an idea for an alien film which would take place after Aliens, after the second film.
A proper sequel.
Yeah, ignoring the third and fourth movie.
So he released a lot of concept artwork for it. It would have brought back Sigourney Weaver and the character Hicks. I forgot who plays him in the Alien film. The guy who's also in the Terminator, Kyle Reese in Terminator. So that actor and Sigourney Weaver, playing their current age and everything. So all this concept art was released, but Ridley Scott had his own vision, so he did not let that happen. So I'm kind of pissed with Ridley Scott because of that. Yeah.
Like when you make bad films, which once were good films to follow through, and they don't make films anymore because of that. I love Predator. Predator 2 was good. Predators was good. But then they made the Predator and AVP and Requiem and all that. But right now, everybody's like, we don't need more Predator films. I need more Predator films. But just because they screwed up some films doesn't mean that they can't make more of it. But they don't, because production houses don't. And I remember Predator getting its budget cut down from $200 million to something much, much more down. So they had to cut it as required. That was sad. And then it's been
I think you should have like a specific series podcast, if you want to discuss these things in detail. Like, there's like a podcast
How many
where we talk about
podcasts are we
the
gonna have? I mean,
hey, like you start somewhere, right?
yeah. I mean, for now, it would be fine because we are pretty much jobless. But I don't think you would be consistent when college starts, right?
Yeah, sure.
That is that. Okay, so we call it a wrap. Is there
Yeah,
anything
so
else?
let's have like a ending segment. Otherwise, it'll be too jarring if you're cutting out sections in which.
Yeah. Ginger, is there something left that you want to ask?
Any heartfelt comments?
Me.
Abhiram.
No, like starting from the day when this kind of surrounding we find ourselves in right now. It's fun how things change. It's fun how you get to network to people and then talk about similar interests. And the very idea of this podcast was to bring people together to form this community. discuss things they love and hate together. You can have differing opinions and all that. But then to talk with people from the industry who have been in the helm of things, done different things, and someone has diverse direction, production, and all that, it's showing us a path that even though things might not seem right in that particular, the goal is not being shown right away, but then you have done things that are very. We are a short production. We make films, and in the future, we're going to face the same issues that's that thing from your kind. Look forward to it.
I mean, see, here, having worked on a lot of films, like I said, as an observer, every day you're learning something, and you think you know enough, but then the next day teaches you something more. So you could be 60 and still making films, and still could be learning new things, and there could be instances where you're an established filmmaker at 60 and somebody, a 20-year-old somebody could walk into set and they could have a perspective that you never had or never saw. So that's the fun thing about films, is like you won't get bored because every day is different. How you you think you've seen it all, but what challenges that filmmaking can throw at you is different. And I think that's why it's so fun, despite the hours and hours of sleeplessness you have to endure, or you go through you waste your younger years stressed, and because it's not easy. Making a movie is not easy. You can see people's hair turn gray, it's fully black at the beginning of the production and by the time the movie comes out it's all gray, if there is hair at all. It's stressful, but there is a certain magic that making movies has that you can't find in, at least I feel, in other professions. And you just meet so many people, because the amount of people that are involved in making a film, you can have cases where a movie like Village Rockstar is made one person, wrote, directed, cinematographer, music, sound, everything by one person. And then you can have a movie like Happy New Year, where you have 200 people involved and God knows how many visual effects artists and how many units across how many countries, all those things. And you guys, starting out in this are quite fortunate, I feel, because you have access to a lot of information and technology that when I started out did not have, when I did not have access to. Cell phone cameras were a thing of the past. Cell phone cameras were not even existent at the time, having a computer. Sorry, my nephews have barged in. So when I was younger, there was a lot of things that I did not have access to, YouTube did not exist. Cell phone cameras were not.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Right.
Also, the choices were very less.
Yeah, and also it's still a bit of a stigma, if you're working in cinema, it's something. I'm mostly facing problems because my family is aggressively looking for a partner for me for marriage, and oftentimes, especially in the Muslim community, when you hear, oh, he's a filmmaker, it's a big no. So there's a stigma that filmmakers have, but these guys are ready to line up for a movie when it comes out in the theater, but a filmmaker in the family is a big no-no. So, yeah, but I just want to say, I'll just end on the note that saying, you guys are in a very lucky position that you can explore this as an option, and you have access to an audience in this day and age, and you can put out stuff without fear of what will people say. You can just, whatever you want to see, you can just say it. So I want to wish you guys luck in your future endeavors, and I hope maybe some point in the future we can even work together.
Yeah. See, look at me. I look amazing, right? I have a very good face for camera, right? I don't know.
I think it might be the camera. It's definitely the camera.
It's not the camera. But yeah, I'm there in model engineering college. തൊട്ടടുത്ത് കൊച്ചിയിലെന്നെ എന്ത് rush അടിക്ക് വിളിച്ചോ.
Definitely.
On that note, I would like to thank sir for joining with us, taking your time out.
Have to call me sir.
Cheta. Yeah. So thanks a lot for joining us, and
Thank you.
I hope to the listeners that they would have had a beautiful experience listening to us, especially at Jinjal Abhiram, who's I think the most excited person.
I
Yeah.
And I want to wish you good luck on your future podcast. Maybe this will be the first of, say, another 500 to come.
That's a huge exaggeration, but let's do consider that number for now. So yeah, on that note, we'll end this. Thank you very much.